Hi everybody, this is Jonathan Scott at home here in Nairobi with my darling Angie, and 8 weeks into lockdown, and of course we know that for many of you that dreaded word, lockdown, has come back right into the center of your reality. In England, 4 weeks of lockdown. And of course, nail-biting times for people in America as they get ready to vote in a crucial election. And I just want to read you a little something out of a book. I'll just disappear here for a minute, called Serengeti Shall Not Die. Now, as a kid, I was inspired by this German veterinarian, zoologist, zookeeper, Dr. Bernhard Grzimek, the man with the name that was almost impossible for a Brit to pronounce, Grzimek. And his son Michael, who flew to the Serengeti and in 1959 surveyed the wildebeest migration. We didn't even really know how far the wildebeest wandered, the extent of their journey. And yet the park authorities, the colonial authorities, wanted to change the boundaries of the park to accommodate, and you could say rightly so, the needs of the local community, the Maasai, who wanted to be able to bring cattle in seasonally to water their cattle, to bring them to salt licks, and at the same time to protect the wilderness area. And of course, as we know, the Maasai's relationship with wildlife has always been very benign. Live and let live. And long may that last. But in this book, Serengeti Shall Not Die, and I can promise you, Mara Serengeti, Maasai Mara, where Angie and I go and watch big cats, where Big Cat Tales is filmed, where Big Cat Diary was filmed, the wonderful, Kenya's wonderful Maasai Mara, that little blip, if you like, but a hugely important dry season area for the migration above the Serengeti, which to the south lies in Tanzania, where Angie grew up. And Bernhard Grzimek, in his plea, and this was at a time when there was a lot of poaching, and there's still meat poaching to this day, but in this book it was so telling, because he said, Dr. Grzimek's simply and dignified, to read here, Dr. Grzimek's simple and dignified statement of his faith. Men, he says, have other ideals for which they're willing to die. Freedom, glory, politics, religion, the rulership of their class, or the expansion of national borders. But in the long run, Michael, his son, and I will be proved right. Millions feared Hitler, and millions were enthralled by him. Millions laid down their lives for him, and other millions died fighting against him. Today, when German school children are asked questions about Hitler, most of them know very little about him, and cannot even name his henchmen. Men are easily inspired by human ideas, but they forget them just as quickly. Only nature is eternal. Isn't that true? Nature. We can't survive without nature. Nature has to be there. It is the basis of our life. That's why we created the Sacred Nature Initiative in 2019, and you'll hear more about that, to try and reconnect people to this essence of our lives, nature. Only nature is eternal unless we senselessly destroy it. In 50 years' time, and remember this was written in 1959, in 50 years' time, nobody will be interested in the results of the conferences which fill today's headlines. But when, 50 years from now, and I love this, just close your eyes for a minute and imagine the wonder of being back on safari in Kenya, in the Maasai Mara, in the land of the lion. When 50 years from now, a lion walks into the red dawn and roars resoundingly, it will mean something to people and quicken their hearts. Whether they're Bolsheviks or Democrats, or whether they speak English, German, Russian, or Swahili. They will stand in quiet awe as for the first time in their lives they watch 20,000 zebras wander across the endless plains. Is it really so stupid to work for the zebras lions and men who will walk the earth 50 years from now? That's us. And for those in 100 and 200 years' time, that's our grandchildren's grandchildren. Had Dr. Grzimek, so this was in the foreword to the book, this is Alan Moorhead, had Dr. Grzimek nothing more to contribute than these emotions, he might indeed have been dismissed by some people as yet another wildlife crank. Now, haven't we heard that before? Those days are gladly slipping into the darkness. The days when you could rubbish people for wanting to protect the environment, that green philosophy, today is being embraced by people across the globe, by politicians, by international companies, because we have to, whether we like it or not, if we're to survive. But he is very far from being a crank. As director of the Frankfurt Zoo, he's a scholar and a naturalist of distinction, and both he and his son went about their self-appointed task in an extremely practical way. They saw that if the Serengeti Reserve was to be saved, the first thing to do was to know it properly, to take, as it were, an inventory of the country and the animals in it. And you see, that's so important, and that's what we have to do today, and that's what we, with the Sacred Nature Initiative, will be encouraging, is so that we know exactly what places like the Mara Serengeti represent. The numbers of wildebeest, the numbers of lions, cheetahs, leopards. So, in 5 years' time, we know, have they declined, have they increased? Is tourism impacting adversely, as it sometimes does, on cheetahs with cubs? Are we making their lives more difficult? If we know that, then we are obliged to do something about it. That's the beauty of science. It gives us something measurable that we can actually listen to. And so, lockdown and loneliness and despondency, a sense of loss, a loss of what we've come to know and be accustomed to. For many of us, a comfortable life. For millions of people, a very different kind of life. And it's the people living in poverty who are going to be feeling these difficult times far more than most of us. So today, on a Sunday, let's think about other people. Let's do everything that we can to play our part in helping to find a way forward through the pandemic. And as we do, of finding a new way, a new reality of being, which will allow us to live more closely with nature, in harmony with nature, for the sake of all mankind. So, this was part of the good, the bad and the ugly, the world as we see it, the world from where we're standing. So have a wonderful rest of the day, and lots of love from myself and Angie. Bye-bye, everybody.